I want you to imagine something right now. Imagine if for just 3 days you spoke nothing but power into your life. No complaints, no excuses, no self-doubt. For 3 days, your words would be fuel. They would be fire. They would be life. Do you know what would happen? Your soul would shift. Your energy would rise. Your destiny would move. Words are not just sounds. They are commands to your mind. They are orders to your body. They are vibrations that tell the universe exactly who you are and where you're going. And most people walk through life cursing themselves without even knowing it. They say, I'm tired, I can't. It's too hard. I'm not enough. And those words build a cage around their soul. But the moment you change your language, you change your life. So here's the challenge. 3 days, just 3 days. For the next 72 hours, I want you to declare words of power over your life. Every time you wake up, you speak energy into your soul. You say, I am strong. I am unstoppable. I am worthy. I am rising. I am alive with purpose. Even if your voice shakes, even if your mind doubts, even if your body resists, you speak it anyway. Because your soul is listening, your brain is listening. And when you repeat power, power becomes your identity. Think about it. 3 days of watering your soul with strength instead of poison. 3 days of commanding your future instead of complaining about your past. 3 days of choosing power words over powerless words. Do you know how fast your spirit will awaken? How quickly your mind will begin to shift? You don't need years to spark change. You don't need a lifetime to rise. Sometimes all it takes is a short, concentrated burst of intentional action. 3 days of fire. 3 days of conviction. 3 days of speaking life where you used to speak death. And if you truly commit, those 3 days will break the chain. They'll reset your identity. They'll ignite something inside of you that cannot be shut down. So ask yourself right now, are you willing? Are you hungry enough? Can you commit to 3 days where your language becomes your weapon, your tool, your shield? Because the truth is, when you speak power into your soul begins to roar back. And in that roar, you'll discover a version of yourself you've been waiting for all along. And every single one of us has been given the most powerful tool in existence, yet very few people recognize its true force. That tool is language, words, the sounds you speak every day. What you say becomes what you live. What you declare becomes what you embody. Words are not harmless. They are not casual. They are not insignificant. They are the building blocks of your future and the wrecking balls of your past. Every phrase you utter is either a weapon you use against yourself or a weapon you use to fight for yourself. It's a choice you make every single moment of your life. Most people don't even realize the prison they're building with their own voice. They say things like, I can't do this. I'll never be enough. This always happens to me. And then they wonder why life keeps delivering the same patterns. They don't see that their words are seeds, and every seed you plant grows. If you plant poison, you reap poison. If you plant strength, you reap strength. When you speak something out loud, you are not just describing reality, you are commanding reality. The mind doesn't differentiate between what's real and what's imagined when it's repeated with intensity. And tell yourself you're exhausted often enough, and your body will start to slow down. Tell yourself you're stupid often enough, and you'll begin to hesitate, doubt, and shrink. Tell yourself you're unlucky, and your eyes will only notice misfortune. On the other hand, tell yourself you are powerful, that you are growing, and that you are learning, that you are unstoppable, and your mind will begin to search for the evidence that it's true. Your subconscious will start aligning your actions to match that language. Your body will feel energy where before it felt fatigue. Your perspective will shift from scarcity to possibility. That's not fantasy, it's biology. It's psychology, it's reality. Think about the greatest transformations in your own life. Didn't they begin with a moment where you said something different, maybe even small, but powerful enough to change direction? Maybe it was, I'm done living this way, or I deserve better, or this is my time. A single phrase can carry enough voltage to jolt your soul awake. When you harness it deliberately, when you begin to use your language as a conscious tool, rather than unconscious noise, you tap into a force that most people sleep through their entire lives. Look at history. Leaders have risen and nations have been moved because of words. Revolutions have started not with swords, but with speeches. Entire cultures have shifted because someone dared to speak differently. And if words can alter the course of millions of lives, what do you think they can do to your own? Every morning you wake up, your tongue is the general and your mind is the army. If the general gives weak orders, the army falters. If the general gives clear, strong, commanding orders, the army charges forward with power. Yet here's the problem. Most people have trained themselves into the language of limitation. They've repeated the same complaints so many times that their mouth runs on autopilot. I'm broke. I'm tired. I can't catch a break. Nothing ever works out. These phrases feel small, but they are chains. They are mantras of defeat disguised as casual conversation. And repetition is powerful. The more you repeat something, the more your nervous system wires itself to that reality. You literally program your brain to obey the words you speak. Now imagine what happens if you flip that script. Imagine if instead of feeding your soul weakness, you began to feed it power. Imagine if when challenges came, instead of saying, I can't, you said, I will figure it out. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, you said, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm getting stronger every day. Instead of saying, this always happens to me, you said, this is happening for me to prepare me, to strengthen me. The moment you switch your language, your identity shifts. And when your identity shifts, your future shifts. Your words create a filter for your reality. Two people can face the same problem, but one calls it a disaster and another calls it a challenge. Who do you think finds the solution? Two people can face the same obstacle. One says, I'm stuck. The other says, I'm building resilience. Who do you think comes out stronger? The only difference is the label, and the label comes from language. Change the label and you change the experience. There are people right now living extraordinary lives not because they had perfect conditions, but because they spoke different words over their lives. They refused to accept the vocabulary of limitation. They trained their tongue to be their weapon, their shield, their tool. They knew that words can bend the mind, and the mind bends reality. And you have that same capacity. But it doesn't happen by accident. You must take control. You must catch yourself when you're about to utter defeat and replace it with power. You must become conscious of the words that slip out in frustration, anger, or habit, and turn them into declarations of strength. Here's the truth your soul is always listening. Every word you speak, it absorbs. Every declaration it takes seriously. When you speak, I'm exhausted, your soul responds. Exhaustion is who we are. When you speak, I am powerful, your soul responds. Power is who we are. You cannot escape the authority of your own voice. That's why when you repeat affirmations with certainty, they begin to feel real. That's why when you speak weakness, it becomes your identity. The voice you hear the most in life is your own. Make sure it's building you, not breaking you. Think of a sculptor with a chisel and stone. Every strike shapes the form. Your words are those strikes, and your soul is the stone. Every day you're carving something. The question is, what are you carving? A masterpiece of strength and purpose, or a broken statue of fear and limitation? Each phrase is a stroke. Each declaration is a line etched into your destiny. Over time, the sculpture becomes undeniable. If you don't like what you've built, change your words and begin chiseling something new. When you wake up in the morning, you have two options. You can stumble out of bed and unconsciously complain about how tired you are, how hard life is, how little you have, how much you lack. Or you can rise with fire in your chest and declare what you want to embody. Today I rise with energy. Today I am focused. Today I create progress. Today I speak only power. One path builds momentum in the wrong direction. The other path sets the tone for growth, resilience, and strength. The difference is not in the circumstances. The difference is in the words you choose. And when you master this, when you discipline yourself to speak power into your soul consistently, people around you will notice. They will feel the energy shift. They will hear the conviction in your voice. They will watch as your language alters the atmosphere. Because power in words is contagious. It doesn't just shape your inner world, it leaks into the outer world and influences everyone you touch. When you walk into a room speaking life, confidence, and vision, the environment bends to your energy. That is the magnitude of your voice. For 3 days, I want you to think of yourself as someone stepping into a personal boot camp for the soul. It's not a year, it's not a month, it's not even a week. It's 3 days. 72 hours of total immersion in a new way of speaking, a new way of commanding your life. The challenge is simple but not easy. For the next 3 days, and everything you say has to pass through one filter. Does this empower me or does this weaken me? If it empowers you, say it with conviction. If it weakens you, throw it out and replace it, rebuild it. Most people live their entire lives without ever consciously controlling their language. They let words spill out like water from a broken pipe, flooding their spirit with doubt, excuses, and negativity. But for these 3 days, you will not be like most people. For these 3 days, you will become intentional. Every sentence you speak will carry purpose. You will speak to yourself, to others, to the world, as someone who is alive with strength, and you will begin to notice how fast your energy shifts when you refuse to poison yourself with the usual phrases that hold you down. Think about it like this. For 3 days, you are fasting from weakness. No complaining. No, I can't. No, I'm tired. No, I'm not enough. You are starving those words, starving them of oxygen, refusing to give them power. And in their place, you are feeding your soul with power. You're feeding it with words like, I am strong, I am focused, I am worthy, I am rising. You are nourishing your spirit with declarations that build you. The same way your body responds to food, your soul responds to words. For 3 days, you're going to give it the cleanest fuel possible. Now, here's what will happen. On the first day, your old patterns will fight back. You'll catch yourself wanting to complain out of habit. You'll feel the urge to mutter things you don't even mean, things you've said 1,000 times before. That's the old program trying to stay alive. But this is where the challenge begins. You stop. You catch yourself. You redirect. Instead of letting the weakness escape your lips, you replace it with strength. Maybe your body says, I'm exhausted. You catch it and declare, I am recharging. I am finding my energy. Maybe your mind whispers, I can't handle this. You shout back, I can handle anything. I've handled everything so far, and I am still standing. The first day is about awareness. By the second day, something shifts. Your awareness sharpens. You begin to hear your old language before it even comes out. You start catching the thought before it becomes a word. And now you have the power to rewire. Instead of speaking defeat, you deliberately choose victory. Instead of letting the old words dictate your energy, you begin to dictate your energy with new words. And the effect is almost immediate. You feel lighter. Your body feels stronger. Your attitude lifts. People around you notice. They can feel the difference in your presence because your language changes your energy and your energy changes the environment. By the third day, momentum kicks in. What felt awkward on day one starts to feel natural. What felt forced starts to flow. You begin to realize that the words of power you've been speaking are not just affirmations. They are becoming your identity. When you say, I am strong for 3 days straight, a part of you begins to believe it at the core. When you declare, I am worthy every morning and every night, the old voice of unworthiness begins to lose its grip. When you affirm, I am unstoppable, your brain looks for proof to match that declaration. In just 3 days, the architecture of your thoughts begins to shift because your words are carving new grooves in your mind. This is not theory. This is not abstract. This is practical transformation. Scientists call it neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on repeated input. For 3 days, your repeated input will be words of power. You are essentially reprogramming your brain at lightning speed. And while 3 days may sound small, it is enough to create a break in the pattern. It is enough to interrupt the cycle that has held you in place for years. It is enough to show your soul what it feels like to breathe power instead of poison. And once you've tasted that, you cannot untaste it. Once you've felt the strength of living 3 days without self-doubt, without verbal weakness, without negative mantras, you'll want more. You'll want to keep going. But you don't have to think about forever. All you need to do is commit to 3 days. 3 days of ruthless discipline with your words. 3 days of catching yourself every time you want to say something that weakens you. 3 days of replacing weakness with power. The beauty of this challenge is that it doesn't matter where you are in life. You could be struggling financially. You could be battling with health. You could be facing heartbreak. You could be at the bottom of a pit. But for 3 days, your words will not reflect the pit. Your words will reflect the mountain. For 3 days, your words will not describe your pain. They will declare your power. You will not deny reality, but you will not give reality the authority to dictate your destiny. You will speak what you want to become, not what you fear you already are. The world will try to test you in these 3 days. Challenges will come. Someone will cut you off in traffic. Someone will criticize you. Something will go wrong. And in those moments, the temptation to complain will be strong. But that's when the challenge is most powerful. That's when you stop yourself and choose new language. Instead of saying, why does this always happen to me? You declare, this is my chance to grow, to show patience, to prove my strength. Instead of saying, I can't believe this setback, you say, this is fuel. This is teaching me. This is preparing me. The world may not change in 3 days, but the way you respond to it will, and that is where true transformation begins. For 3 days, you will wake up with declarations on your lips. Before your feet hit the floor, you speak life. Today I rise with power. Today I rise with clarity. Today I rise with focus. Throughout the day, you repeat those words like oxygen. Before you go to sleep, you close your eyes and speak strength. I am grateful. I am stronger than yesterday. I am ready for tomorrow. And in those 3 days, you begin to reintroduce yourself to yourself. You meet the version of you that does not complain, that does not settle, that does not bow to weakness. You meet the version of you that commands, that leads, that speaks power into every fiber of your soul. Repetition is the mother of mastery, and nowhere is this more true than with the words you speak to yourself. Every single time you repeat a phrase, it digs deeper into your subconscious. It's like carving a path through the wilderness. The first time you walk through, it's rough, it's tangled, it's difficult. But the more you travel that route, the clearer it becomes. Eventually, it turns into a road, and soon it becomes the only road your mind wants to travel. That is exactly how identity is built. Your identity is nothing more than the words you repeat often enough until they become who you believe you are. Think about the words you've said to yourself over and over again in the past. Maybe it was, I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. I'm shy. I'm unlucky. At first, they were just thoughts, maybe even words you heard from someone else. But because you repeated them, because you reinforced them, they became beliefs. And once something becomes a belief, it doesn't just stay in your head. It begins to direct your life. You make decisions based on it. You take or don't take actions based on it. You build habits around it. And before you know it, those words have shaped your destiny. That's the hidden truth. Most people never realize identity is not fixed. Identity is created. It's programmed. And the main way it's programmed is through repetition of language. When you repeat weakness, you wire yourself into weakness. When you repeat power, you wire yourself into power. The brain doesn't ask if what you're saying is true. It simply accepts repeated input as truth. And that's why when someone tells themselves every single day, I'm worthless, they begin to embody worthlessness. And when someone tells themselves every single day, I am unstoppable, they begin to embody unstoppable energy. Look at athletes at the highest level. Before they step into the arena, they don't whisper to themselves, I hope I don't fail. They repeat mantras of strength. I am ready. I am the best. I am built for this. over and over until their entire nervous system believes it. Soldiers do it. Entrepreneurs do it. Leaders do it. Anyone who achieves extraordinary results uses repetition of empowering language to install an identity of power. Because when the pressure hits, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your identity. And your identity is nothing more than the story you keep repeating. Think of a child learning to ride a bike. At first, the child says, I can't do it. They wobble, they fall, they cry. But with encouragement, with repetition, they begin to say, I can do this. And eventually that phrase takes root. They don't just ride the bike, they identify as someone who can ride a bike. The same principle applies to every area of life. At first, the words feel foreign, almost fake, but with enough repetition, they become normal, and eventually, they become you. There is a reason affirmations have been practiced for thousands of years in different cultures. It's not magic. It's conditioning. When you affirm something repeatedly, you are programming your subconscious to align with it. It's like installing software. The old program says, you're not enough. The new program says, you are more than enough. If you only say it once, the old program wins. But if you say it again and again and again, and eventually the old code gets overwritten suddenly, the subconscious begins to act as if the new statement is true. And when the subconscious acts, your entire life follows. This is why the language you use daily matters so much. If you say something weak once in a while, it won't destroy you. But if you repeat it for years, it becomes who you are. And if you repeat something powerful every single day, it too becomes who you are. Identity follows repetition. Belief follows repetition. Destiny follows repetition. The question is, what are you rehearsing into your life? What script are you running? Because your brain is taking notes on everything you say, and it's building your identity accordingly. Consider someone who says, I'm shy, over and over again. They may have just been quiet in one moment of their life, but through repetition, they solidify that as part of their identity. Now, every time they're in a social setting, their brain activates the identity of, I'm shy, and they act accordingly. On the flip side, if that same person decided to repeat, I am confident, I connect easily with people, I have value to bring, and they committed to it daily, soon enough their identity would shift. They would start to act differently, not because the world changed, but because their repeated words rewired their identity. Think of someone trying to lose weight. If they constantly repeat, I can't stick to a diet, I hate working out, I'll always be overweight, those words reinforce a powerless identity. That identity leads them to quit early, to self-sabotage, to give up. But if that same person began to repeat daily, I love taking care of my body, I have discipline, I choose health, those words would slowly create a new identity. And when identity shifts, behavior follows naturally. You don't have to force it. You don't have to fight with yourself. You act in alignment with who you believe you are. The real battle of transformation isn't in changing behavior, it's in changing identity. And the fastest way to change identity is to repeat new words until they become your truth. You don't need years for this. You don't need to wait for external evidence. You can start today by choosing what you repeat. Every time you speak, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. Every phrase is a ballot, and the ballots with the most votes win. If most of your ballots say, I'm weak, I'm tired, I'm not enough, that's who wins the election of your identity. But if most of your ballots say, I'm powerful, I'm disciplined, I'm unstoppable, that's who rises to power inside you. Repetition has a way of drowning out doubt. At first, the doubt screams louder than the new words. You say, I am strong, and the mind whispers, no, and you're not. You say, I am worthy, and the mind argues, you failed too many times. But if you keep going, if you repeat it enough, the doubt starts to lose its voice. The mind gets tired of arguing, the new words grow roots. And soon, the subconscious accepts them as fact. That's why repetition is not about saying something once and expecting instant change. It's about drilling it into your nervous system until there is no room left for the old lies. Every great transformation story begins with someone repeating something new until they became it. Someone who once said, "I'm a victim," started saying, "I'm a survivor," and eventually lived like a survivor. Someone who once said, "I'll never succeed," began to repeat, "I'm building my success daily," until success became their normal. Someone who once said, "I don't belong," began to repeat, "I have value. I belong everywhere I go," and soon they walked into rooms with confidence. The words didn't just describe them, the words created them. Repetition is identity training. It's muscle building for the soul. You don't go to the gym once and expect strength. You lift again and again until the body adapts. The same principle applies to your words. You don't declare power once and expect transformation. You repeat it day after day until your spirit adapts, until your mind rewires, until your behavior aligns. That is how repetition of words becomes repetition of action, and repetition of action becomes repetition of identity. And transformation is often seen as something that takes years, something that requires decades of effort, endless struggle, and slow progress. That belief alone keeps most people stuck. They think the mountain is too high, the journey is too long, the effort is too overwhelming, so they don't even begin. But the truth is, change doesn't always need years. Sometimes change only needs a spark. Sometimes all it takes is a short burst of intentional power to set a new course. A single decision, a single concentrated effort can break chains that have held you down for a lifetime. That is the power of short bursts. That is the power of focused intensity. And that is why 3 days of speaking power into your soul can ignite a transformation that feels larger than the time you invested. Think about how a fire begins. It doesn't start with a massive blaze. It starts with a spark, a single flame, a moment of ignition. That spark, if fed, becomes unstoppable. The same is true for your soul. You don't need to wait until everything is perfect, until every condition is right, until you've mapped out years of discipline. You need to start with a spark, and the spark can be as simple as 3 days of refusing to speak weakness and choosing only power. 3 days of relentless intensity can light a fire that continues to burn long after the 3 days are done. Your mind is not built to resist concentrated effort. When you flood it with power for a short, focused period, it can't ignore it. The nervous system adapts quickly to what it's fed consistently, even in small bursts. That's why people who attend a powerful event, read a life-changing book, or experience a breakthrough moment often come out completely different within a matter of days. Their soul was shocked awake. They tasted a different level of energy, and once you taste it, you can't go back to the old. The same thing happens when you commit to a short burst of speaking power. For 3 days, you overwhelm the old patterns. You don't give weakness any room to breathe, and in that intensity, your identity begins to shift. Most people underestimate the power of momentum. They think they need to climb the entire mountain in one go. But transformation begins with momentum, not with the finish line. If you can generate momentum for even a few days, the rest becomes easier. Imagine pushing a heavy boulder. At first it feels impossible. You lean in, you push, and it barely moves. But the moment it shifts, even slightly, momentum takes over. With each push, it rolls farther and faster. Soon, what once felt immovable is charging forward with energy you can barely control. That's what happens when you dedicate a few days to speaking power into your soul. You create the initial push. You generate the momentum. And momentum, once it exists, does half the work for you. There's another reason why short bursts matter. Human beings are wired for focus in small windows. And we can give everything we have to a short challenge in a way we can't always sustain over the long term. If you tell yourself, I have to speak power into for the rest of my life, it feels overwhelming. But if you say, for 3 days, I will live with absolute discipline in my language, it feels possible. The mind accepts short challenges, and once you complete them, you're stronger, you're more confident, and you're ready for more. Short bursts are the gateway to long-term transformation because they prove to you what's possible. Think of a sprinter exploding off the line. They don't pace themselves like a marathon runner. They'd unleash everything they have in a short burst of intensity, and that's why their results are immediate. Your soul responds the same way. For 3 days, you sprint with your words. You unleash everything you have into declarations of strength, of worth, of resilience, of focus. You don't hold back. You don't dilute. You don't compromise. You sprint into a new identity with intensity, and that burst of effort carries you farther than months of half-hearted attempts. Look back at your own life and you'll find examples of this. Moments when you made a powerful decision, when you committed to something with all your energy for just a short period of time, and it created a shift that lasted far longer than the effort itself. Maybe it was deciding to cut off a toxic habit or person. Maybe it was dedicating a few days to a project that changed your career. Maybe it was going all in on a choice that terrified you, but once you did it, nothing was ever the same again. That is what short bursts of intensity do. They bend time. They accelerate growth. They ignite transformation. There's also something psychological that happens when you commit to just a few days of intensity. It removes excuses. For years, people tell themselves, I'll start next week. I'll try when I have more time. I'll wait until life is easier. But 3 days. 3 days is manageable. 3 days is not forever. You can do anything for 3 days. And in those 3 days, the excuse machine shuts down. You don't have to worry about the future. You just have to dominate the present. And when you dominate the present for 3 days, the future looks completely different. Think of it like a reset button. Life builds patterns. Your words build patterns. Those patterns shape your reality. But when you commit to a short burst of power, you interrupt the pattern. You break the cycle. For 3 days, you stop feeding weakness. And when the cycle breaks, something new has the chance to grow. You've probably experienced this in other areas, like changing your diet for a few days and suddenly realizing you feel lighter, more energetic, more alive, or committing to 3 days of intense focus on a task and realizing you achieved more than you did in weeks of procrastination. It's not because the 3 days solved everything. It's because the 3 days broke the inertia, sparked momentum, and proved to you that change is possible. Your brain is a learning machine. It doesn't take years to begin rewiring it. It takes repeated input, even in short doses, delivered with consistency and intensity. That's why when you flood your brain with 3 days of powerful language, it begins to form new grooves. It begins to expect strength instead of weakness. It begins to align with power instead of defeat. The short burst creates the crack in the wall, and once the crack is there, light can pour in. When you give yourself permission to go all in for a short burst, you discover how much power you actually have inside you. You realize you can flip a switch. You realize you don't have to wait until you feel ready. You just decide, you commit, and you act. And in acting, you awaken something that was asleep. That's why 3 days of speaking only power is so transformative. It's not the length of time that matters. It's the intensity, the consistency, and the decision to immerse yourself fully. That immersion rewires you. It makes you realize you are not a prisoner of your old language, your old patterns, or your old excuses. You can change at any moment, and the proof is in the power of a short burst. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe.